Hi there, fellow hikers. A warm welcome to this review of my recent hike to the Tarfala area near Kebnekaise in Lappland in Sweden. Planning this hike, I knew that this area is well known for its strong winds. But what attracted me was the raw beauty of the landscape and my thinking that hiking through here would be a true experience of the fundamental elements and forces of nature. Jumping to the map, you can see here the whole 6-day loop hike, starting and ending in Nikkaluokta mountain station here, and going through here behind Tarfala, so to say. And here's the Icefall Glacier, here's Tarfala Lake on day 5, and then coming back to Nikkaluokta here. Now let's jump straight into the day-by-day run-through of this hike. So on this day 1, straight off the Nikkaluokta express bus from Kiruna at around 12 noon, I began hiking here on the Daghammarsköld trail towards Kebnekaise fjällstation. However, after about 3.5 kilometers here, I turned into a smaller trail here, leading up or heading up towards the high grounds and the mountains up here. Here, it's good to know that the printed topographical map doesn't exactly show the start of this trail at the right location. This is where you see it like on printed maps, the dotted line here. So that's where I had a look first. I couldn't find the entrance of the trail. So I walked back, and the actual trail is a quite small, like a beaten path kind of trail here. It starts very shortly after you cross the river. There's a bridge here and then you cross the river. And then look for the entrance here and you'll find the actual routing of the trail. And then it leads you up here. And same here, the true trail actually goes here. So these are more, some of them at least are old markings that should be updated. And to find this, what I normally do is I always plan my intended route in my navigation app. In my case, it's Topo GPS, but you may be using another app. And you plan a route there, and then you will see where it lands in the more up-to-date database. And then you'll see that the actual route lands here. So that's how I found this trail. Instead of, I met some other people who looked for other entrances here as well and couldn't find it. All right. Then after about another 1 hour or so, I finally reached here the tree line. And here you can see I stopped for a while here. This whole area here, the slope, green grass, etc. Very nice place for a snack break with very nice and broad views of the valley below. Proceeding on this trail up the slope here, you will find that after about 7.5 kilometers distance from Nikkaluokta, the trail fades away and you have free choice of path here across the terrain that is still relatively smooth and easy to navigate. Such favorable terrain conditions continued throughout this day 1 as I proceeded along here. And after refilling my water bottles in this tributary stream here to Chevrajokka river, I camped here on the other side. I did observe this house here from a distance, but I didn't go closer to explore. I just assumed it's anyway a private building, possibly owned by Sami people. So I just stayed here, my campsite here. The winds at my chosen camp spot were occasionally strong, but no real issues with the right tent and the right guy line pitching. A quick look at some data for this day 1 shows here that total distance was 13.8 kilometers. Total ascent 750 meters, total descent 160 meters. And this was in about, I think, 7 hours, 45 minutes, which makes for a slow and relaxing pace of 1.8 kilometer per hour. And this is the kind of pacing I actually like to do, even when the terrain is quite smooth and easy to navigate. And the thing is, I often stop, whether for taking a snack break or film something. Yeah. Day 2 started pretty much like day 1 ended, on fairly smooth and easy to navigate terrain. Only that as I moved along here to the northwest, there were occasionally a little bit more rocky terrain, but still quite minor. And several small streams to cross here, but really minor such. And since I have high leather shell boots starting from this season, I can just walk through whatever small wading that would be necessary. So quite easy for me here. As I moved along here, I made one decision here that I think maybe might not have been the best one. While it was quite smooth going here, I sort of tried to make a shortcut here. So I send it up a little bit, maybe 100 meters or so. And then the terrain, as you go around here, is quite rocky, block terrain. So here was quite tiring. And then some snowfields up here as well. So on second thought, if I would do this hike again, I would probably choose a slightly lower route here, at least 100 meter lower or so. Stay on the relatively flat ground with less rocks nearer to the lake here, and then come this way here. That said, one reason I chose a higher path here was because I wanted to come down the slope here and try to find the earliest possible flat enough ground for me to put up my tent. And it's easier when you come from up to down here to spot what campsites are suitable. Whereas if you would come on a lower altitude here, it's harder to see on the shelves, so to say, on the slope. Just before starting to look for a campsite here, I encountered this herd of reindeer being so relaxed that they sort of lie down to munch on what they had in their mouths. That was quite endearing to see. The winds persisted throughout the day, which is quite normal in this area. But as I approached here, where what would finally be my camp spot, the rain started to come in as well. So as I put up the tent here, I did what I quite often do actually when it's rainy, and I had my dinner and I just relaxed. I put on some music. Puts you in a really good, serene, calm mood, so to say, even though the weather around you outside the tent is windy and raining and noisy at times. And just to add a few words about the particular piece of music I listened to this evening, which is called Summer Hymn, Sommarpsalm. Today it is a favorite choir song representing summer, light, nostalgia, tradition, basically. And a quick look on the data for day 2. Total distance here was, so you can see, 10.1 kilometer. Total ascent 290, total descent 390. And the time taken here was, active time was about 7 hours here. I didn't switch off the recording. And this works out to about 1.4 kilometer per hour. Again, self-chosen relaxed pace on what is still relatively easy terrain. Except for that shortcut over the block terrain and the snowfields that was a bit tiring. Day 3 was spent in its entirety in the valley of Gaskasvagge. walking along here along the river of Gaskasjokka. Gentle uphill slope over this 6 kilometers or so here. I think 200 plus meter ascent up to a small lake here where I decided to camp. Views along the way, some nice waterfalls here, the river coming down from the glacier up in Nibas here. Few minor river crossings here, which with my boots I just walked through basically, very easy for me. Nice views of the Kaskasjokka glacier here, although it was a bit cloudy and misty. So I think the main part here was maybe the views of the very rugged and dramatic Nibas from down below here. It really looks like sort of a moon landscape or whatever you like to call it. In terms of terrain, fairly easy still, except for some sections, particularly what I remember here, the block terrain around this lake, because it was a bit steeper here. And then in the end, before I decided to camp here at this small lake, my decision was basically, let me see here, I either camped here or continued all the way up past this passage here, down to Goberjavrit, the lake here, and camped here. Because I realized, or I reckoned, there was really no place, good place in between here where I could realistically camp. So then I decided, even though I had only walked for 6 kilometers, I decided to camp at this small lake here. All right. And if we then look at the data for this day 3, nothing really dramatic here. As I mentioned, a gentle uphill from some 950 meter up to 1150, 200 meter plus, following the river. Total ascent 240, total descent only 40, and distance 6.2 kilometers. And it took me 5.5 hours to cross this 6.2 kilometers. Meaning the pace was even more relaxed here, 1.2 kilometer per hour. Mainly because I had to decide whether to push on for another 5 kilometers or camp at 6 kilometers. As I woke up on day 4 at the small lake here and checked the weather forecast, this was the only day the meteorologists predicted sunny weather, even though still windy. And with that in mind, I even had the perhaps crazy idea that I would today, this day, hike across this pass and the next pass here, and then reach down to the Tarfala hut. Obviously, that was way too optimistic. As I started to hike here, it's about after maybe only 1 kilometer, then it was all block terrain and snowfields, so quite slow going. And here I try to stay level, so to say, not to drop down too much, until I reached the uphill path here to go to the pass into the Gober Valley and the Gober Lake here. Already coming down here, I realized that no, I'm not going to do 2 passes in the same day. So I was looking for a campsite here. Not so easy to find because very few flat surfaces and most of them have rocks. But myself and one other hiker coming in the opposite direction camped here in this position next to the lake. Even the forecast by the meteorologist was actually too optimistic, because by the time I reached the pass here, The clouds rolled in and there was not much more sun to be seen, except for a few glimpses every now and then. But luckily here, I had carried my drone on this whole hike, and I was hoping to fly it much more than I did. But in this pass here, it was windy, but it wasn't extreme. So I dared to launch my drone here and fly around and have a good look at this Gobirvagge valley here. But that was nice. So again, a quick look at the data then for this day 4. This was the pass then, the first pass in this 6-day hike of mine, reaching up to 1,460 meter here, before going down to the Gobirvagge lake here and camping here at 1,170 meter altitude. Total ascent here 399 meter, total descent 378 meter. And it took me 6 hours 45 minutes to do this 5 kilometers. So the pace was even slower here, 0.8 kilometer. But it's again because of sort of tactical decisions, because continuing on over the next pass here and past the Icefall Glacier and all the way down to the Tarfala hut, that I realized that would be too much. So always make the safest decision. And I had put aside 6 days for this hike in order to be able to make such decisions, to pace it out depending on the conditions. Day 5, the day of finally reaching the Icefall Glacier and the Tarfala Lake. As I started out from my campsite here next to Gobirvagge Lake, the hike up this pass here was actually relatively easy. The real challenge in this hike here is when you get up here and starting to approach this high pass here. Because here the wind gusts can be truly monstrous, to say the least. And it was here that I realized that I'm not going to fly my drone here unless I want to buy a new one, because I would definitely lose it. And it was also here that my DIY rain poncho almost blew off myself, because the winds, when you hike up the slope, the wind's coming from behind you and basically from below you. So it was lifting up my rain poncho and almost tore it off. And I would have had to say goodbye to my homemade rain poncho. So challenging winds, definitely. And seriously, if you wanted to test your tent, this would be the place to do it. Find a flat spot here, put up the tent, and then see if it stays in one piece for 10 minutes or more. That's how bad it can be there. The views all along here, of course, fantastic from both passes and this pass as well. And the excitement coming down here to this lake, the Kebnekaise, the Black Lake, I think it's called also. And here I pushed ahead a bit too far along the lake here, until I realized that the way to go down here is most likely here. It's the first time I'm here, so I wasn't actually 100% sure. But if you look at sort of the suggested path here by this marking in the map, you're supposed to go down here. But I think that would be probably quite dangerous unless you're a climber or you have climbing stuff with you. Because you can see how steep it is here. So, and I think this is the way here that most hikers here go down. It's a relatively short slope. It's a bit steep. The biggest issue here is that it's often raining here, as it was when I was there. So the rocks were wet and surrounded by lots of smaller rocks that are totally loose. Even medium-sized rocks were actually loose here. So it's very easy to put your foot down and then you start sort of a minor avalanche, if you like, of rocks. And you could see down on the glacier here quite a number of rocks had been sort of fallen down already. So this was, I had to stop here and think for a while, how do I get down with my 18 kg backpack? So in the end, I did sort of go down on all four and sort of use my hands and feet sort of backwards trying to go down here. That was the safest way to do this, I felt. Finally down here, it's actually, the map is not updated. The edge of the glacier is going probably around here somewhere. So at the edge here is a narrow snowfield slanting down here. So that's what I followed until I got onto the rock here again. And then aiming for the ridge here, in Swedish you call it moränrygg, all the rocks that the glacier has pushed up into sort of a ridge here. And then the rest was fairly straightforward hiking, coming down to the lake here and to the hut. My original plan was to camp near the hut here in one of the prepared tent sites with stone walls around them, etc. But when I checked out the hut, it felt so warm and cozy, heated by electrical radiators, in fact, that I decided against camping and chose to stay one night in the hut instead. So you could say this day 5 had it all, the excitement, the fantastic views, and really active day, so to say, not a leisure hike for sure. And here I'm actually curious what you guys have done. If any one of you have ever tried to go straight down here instead of sort of going down to the edge of the glacier. And whether this passage here is even possible for someone with a 18 kg backpack, short of proper climbing. I mean, I do understand that years back the glacier was higher. It has both sadly shrunk and sunk. So I think that maybe the top of the glacier here was more level with the rocky terrain here. So it was then easier to just get out on the glacier and then continue here. But this is just me speculating. I'm not really sure, but that's what I gather from having read some accounts from the past. So again, I'm curious to hear your experiences from especially this pass here and this passage. And then looking at the data for this day 5, then you'll see the pass here with the sometimes monstrous wind gusts was here at 1490 meters, right? The rest, yeah. Here was the slope, basically. Here, yes. Wet and loose rocks where I made my way down to the glacier. And then followed the snowfield here, is a narrow snowfield. And then basically, here I think GPS has not worked properly. Anyway, so total distance for this day 5, 5.4 kilometers. And the time taken here about 6 hours. So that works out to a pace of, I think, 0.9 kilometers per hour. Naturally, a slow pace in this kind of terrain and weather conditions, so not really a surprise. Finally, day 6, the home run day, if you like. I woke up at the hut, seeing a fine sprinkle of July snow on the top of the mountains, or the upper half of the mountains, and seeing a bit of fine dust-like snowfall around Tarfala hut. I started hiking down Tarfala Valley here, following Tarfala River. Nice scenery, and gradually every step going down here, weather gets warmer and also more sunny, literally. The sun appeared when I reached the valley here near Kebnekaise fjällstation. And then I joined sort of the highway trail, Daghammarskjölds trail here from Kebnekaise fjällstation back to Nikkaluokta. A longer hike, but all totally downhill, so quite enjoyable. Birds, flowers, etc. Truly all downhill hike here. Distance 22.7 kilometers. Time taken totally about 9 hours here. Total ascent almost nothing, obviously. Total descent 760 meters. And this makes for a pace of, I think, around 2.6 kilometers per hour. So fairly normal flat hiking pace in any forest on a smooth trail, I would say. To conclude this review, would I say that this hike was worth the effort? Absolutely, yes it was. To be honest though, as a 67-year-old retiree, I'm not sure I'd be willing to embark on an even more demanding hike than this, even though the potential reward in terms of a truly unique experience would then also be higher. As an aging retiree, I'm more and more seeking something that I personally call wilderness therapy. And in an upcoming video, probably a few weeks from now, I'll explain what I mean by that and what I do to obtain it. Until then, happy hiking!